So just for the camera one time, who are you?
My name is Ron Tite, and I'm the CEO of the Tite Group.
And what does the Tite Group do?
The Tite Group is a content agency based in Toronto, and so we work with media properties and with brands, and helping them redefine the relationship that they have with content.
Great. So you work with all kinds of different brands, and so what you're helping them to do is sort of find new ways to tackle markets in terms of content, or
Yeah, we know that brands have to win the battle for time, and that media properties have to win the battle for time. And less and less advertising, traditional advertising, it's certainly not dead, but it's just not as effective as it used to be. And given the really low cost of production and the ease of distribution, that it has completely flipped the content world on its head. And everyone kind of looks at what are brands doing with content, but forgetting the fact that big media companies are losing their shirts because they actually haven't been able to pivot in the content world either. So we work with people like the Global Mail and the CBC on how do we create a new perspective on their content, and we work with brands and helping them become media properties as well.
awesome. So let's start with this idea of ideas. So something that we sort of talk about a lot in our Intrapreneurial Alliance journal is innovation from within companies. So being able to come up with ideas, so a lot of people, entrepreneurship is really big these days, but we're focused on these intrapreneurs, people inside companies.
Yeah.
So maybe let me start really broadly. What does intrapreneurship mean to you?
To me, it means taking the mindset that entrepreneurs have, being nimble, being innovative, solving problems, all those things, and applying it internally with an established organization, and which typically is the antithetical to those types of things, right? So instead of saying, we should be a startup, I think it's just how do we take the best of the startup world, and how do we integrate that into existing established organizations so that you get the best of both worlds. You get the size and the scale and the efficiencies of a large established group with the nimbleness and the innovation that comes with being smaller and less established.
Cool. How has the Tite Group helped to facilitate this with some of your clients?
So, we're not IBM. We're not this massive organization with a huge bureaucracy. But this is where the challenge of intrapreneurship comes in. That even for an organization like ours, who is growing, that we need to strip out the inefficiencies. And so if you think, I grew up in Oshawa, down the street from a General Motors plant. So I know how that world works. And how that world works is you have an assembly line. And the reason you have an assembly line is that there are very clear roles that are defined. It is as automated as it possibly can be. You have stripped out, every single inefficiency from a time and a financial standpoint, so that at the end you protect your margin, and so you have the highest profitability you can in an assembly line environment. And every organization out there should want to get to an assembly line environment because that's where you make the most money.
Mm.
The challenge with that is when we then say, yes, but we need to be nimble and we need to innovate and we need to be entrepreneurs. Well, you can't do that on the assembly line. You don't mess with the assembly line because if you change the spot welder, well, that has ramifications further down the assembly line. So what I think real entrepreneurs have to do, real intrapreneurs have to do, is do what the car companies do. That when they want to really innovate something, they don't mess with the assembly line. They pull it off the assembly line and they create a concept car. What I love about that analogy of the concept car is there is no expectation of profit. They don't build the car to go into production. They pull off the assembly line and just say, let's just see what we can do here. And that's a lot of startups are in that zone too. They don't have a revenue model. They're just trying to solve a problem, or they're just exploring something. And there is an expectation that eventually there'll be something there for them. But in a concept car, you have a smaller group of people who are completely focused on the task. They can be wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and adventurous and creative and curious because they're being funded by people who have really specific rules on the assembly line. So when we do that, we published a book called "This Is That: Travel Guide to Canada" on behalf of a CBC radio show called "This Is That." And I don't know the first thing about publishing a book. We're the publisher, but we didn't know how to do that. That wasn't on the assembly line. So we pulled it off the assembly line. We let everybody continue to do their job. We had a team of 3 people inside our organization who exclusively worked on it. We worked with freelance designers who were specialists in that area instead of looping in people and pulling them off the assembly line. So we created this little pod of intrapreneurship within the organization. So it's kind of the best of both worlds, that you're protecting the established organization, you're kind of creating a startup within the walls of your organization using some of your existing talent, but you're not wreaking havoc and chaos on everybody else.
That's great. Well, what kind of conditions do you think companies should be fostering to sort of allow for this entrepreneurial environment? So a lot of companies are very focused on the production line,
Yeah.
and they need a little bit of a push and ideas for how do we allow room for some of our people to want to even build this concept car. What do you think some of those conditions?
I think we need a couple. I think one, and I just saw a question from somebody earlier today, and it's like, do you allow your people to do freelance work outside of work hours? My entire life, my entire career was built on the side hustle. So I think we have to allow people to explore, other avenues and the side hustle. They need to be able to do that, and as long as it's not, in conflict with any of your existing clients, and as long as they can do it in work hours, and maybe they take more holidays or whatever. But you have to, I think, encourage people to do the side hustle, because now they start to work on they start to work on something they're really passionate about. They work on a smaller group of people, and they don't have the constraints of organizational policy and procedure and all those things that can get in the way of innovation. So let them do it outside of work and practice out there. And then by the time they come in, they've already kind of been an entrepreneur on their own. They've already done it. And maybe they're not building a big organization, but if someone's done freelance, they're rolling up their sleeves, they're carrying out the package, they're doing the minutes, they're doing all those things that startups have to do. So encourage the side hustle. The second thing, I think, is that you have to encourage people internally to move around within the organization. And sometimes you don't know whether they're right for a full-time role if it's a lateral move. So an entrepreneurial project it's almost like they're on secondment, out of their current role into this little thing. And then if they show aptitude for that, now you've got a base that you can give them feedback on, and they post it. We think you can do an amazing job at this new job, so we're promoting you. And then they get over there 2 months later, and you're like, oh, they're not good at that. You can't send them back. So I think, allowing them to go on internal secondment without the constraints of everything that governs their job is a really nice way of letting them explore new ideas.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
That has been fantastic. Thanks, Ron.
Cool. Okay.